Okay, there's a robbery reporter walking down the street and he meets a woman. He asks her, "Excuse me, ma'am, but do you and your husband have mutual climax?" And she replies, "No, I think it's State Farm." Everyone loves the good guys. They're kind, they always do the right thing, but it's the bad guys who keep you watching because they don't need to be loved. They just need to be hated enough that you can't stop. Brittany was one of those bad girls on American TV. She was beautiful like a goddess and had a voice as sweet as honey. But she could kill someone with one car accident and walk away with nothing but a cold smile in the smoky night. When she appeared on Dallas, the most popular show in America in the 1980s, she was only supposed to be in 6 episodes, but fans wouldn't let her go. They hated her, wrote letters insulting her, and demanded that her character be punished, but they couldn't take their eyes off of her. Just one look made everything around her dangerous, but that wasn't the whole story. Before she became Catherine Wentworth and shocked the whole country, Brittany was a famous child actress who went missing, changed her name, and changed her fate. When she came back, she wasn't the same star she had been before, but a new woman so beautiful it was unsettling and as sharp as a blade hidden under silk. She had once been a child growing up, and Brittany was born on December 5, 1951, in Los Angeles, California. Her birth name was Suzanne Cupito, and she grew up in poverty with her single mother. She was married to a famous stuntman and rode horses every morning before going back to politics and making arguments that everyone had to stop and listen. And grandmother lived in a small hotel on 6th Street, but her mother was determined to lead her daughter down a different path, the arts. When Morgan was only 4, her mother put her in dance and acting classes, and soon after she started trying out for commercials. Her mother thought that if her daughter could act, their lives would change for the better, and she did start acting early. Under the name Suzanne Cupito, she appeared on TV when she was 5 years old. From the late 1950s to the mid-1960s, in the 1960s she was in a number of popular TV shows including The Twilight Zone, Sea Hunt, Rawhide, Gunsmoke Stage to Thunder Rock, The Outer Limits, Lassie, and The Andy Griffith Show, with stars like Ron Howard, Henry Fonda, and Lucille Ball. In The Twilight Zone, she made an impression as the strange little girl in the episode Nightmare as a child, even though she wasn't given credit. People still remembered her eyes and voice. In Caesar and Me, she played Susan, a child who was very different from the usual innocent child. Directors started to see her not just as a cute kid but as a real actress. In the Outer Limits episode The Inheritors, Morgan played a blind girl, which required her to show a lot of emotion without words. She did this by moving and making facial expressions that showed vulnerability and loneliness. These emotional ranges in small roles made her a familiar face in Hollywood, even if people didn't remember her name yet. But her big break came in 1962 when she was cast as Baby June, and Natalie Wood played the younger sister of the main character, Morgan, in the hit musical Gypsy. She sang, danced, and performed with unmatched energy in the film's most difficult musical numbers. Her performance far exceeded expectations for her age, drawing the attention of critics and filmmakers alike. Some newspapers even said she was born to be on stage. This role made her one of the most promising child actresses of the early 1960s and led to bigger opportunities, such as being handpicked for Alfred Hitchcock cast her in The Birds, 1963, and Marne, 1964. But some of her scenes in Marne were cut. Still, like many child actors, Morgan couldn't avoid the problems that come with becoming a teenager. After her role in Yours, Mine, and Ours, 1968, she pretty much disappeared from the screen. Roles for kids weren't working anymore, and roles for teens needed a different look. She went back to school and attended Cleveland High School in Rita, where she acted in school plays with classmate Charles Martin Smith. She studied journalism at California State University Northridge and started getting ready for the biggest comeback of her life with a new name and a new identity. When she was in her 20s, Brittany, who was still known as Suzanne Cito, heard the worst news an actor could ever hear: Hollywood didn't need her anymore. After a successful run as a child actress, Morgan thought she would just grow up in the business, but by the early 1970s things had changed. She was seen as too polished, clean, and classic at a time when even though she had worked with Lucille Ball and acted for Alfred Hitchcock, directors would still look at her resume under the name Susie Cupito and turn her down before she even had an audition. She knew she had to change everything, and she started with her name. Morgan found the book Flood Tide by Frank Yerby in a used bookstore. The first page said, Morgan Brittany is the mistress of a southern plantation. She closed the book and read the rest of the story. Morgan Brittany decided then there I will be Morgan Brittany. She sold the only car she owned, bought a one-way plane ticket to New York and started over. When she got there she went to the doors of advertising agencies and told them she was a recent college graduate who had never acted before but wanted to give it a try. Her good looks, convincing personality, and hidden acting experience quickly got her noticed, and she soon appeared in a number of major advertising campaigns from she modeled for Levi's, Maybelline, L'Oreal, Ford and many other brands, working with Rene Russo and Christie Brinkley, and became one of the most famous faces in advertising and fashion in the 1970s. In 1974 she was asked to be the global ambassador for the Japanese cosmetics brand Kaneo. She spent 2 years living in Tokyo and traveling the world, where she learned how to work internationally, manage her public image, and keep her professional poise, which she would need when she returned to When Morgan returned to the US in the late 1970s, she wasn't the little girl named Cupito who was turned away at casting doors. She had experience on stage and a name that sounded like it was already famous. She started to return to TV, taking on more mature roles with more emotional depth. In The Amazing Howard Hughes 1977, she played Jean Peters, the beautiful but insecure wife of eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes. It was her first role that showed how well she could portray pain and inner conflict without using dramatic effects. The next year she was in Initiation of Sarah 1978, a horror supernatural movie with elements of secret societies and mysticism. Morgan played Patty Goodwin, a mysterious sister who always seemed to be hiding something. She did a great job of giving off a chilling calmness that radiated a quiet danger. This image of a beautiful, quiet woman with something dangerous going on beneath the surface would become her trademark. Next was Death Car on the Freeway 1979, in which Morgan played Kim, one of the victims of a freeway serial killer. She played a woman who could fight back, defend herself, and face danger head-on. Even though it was a small part, Morgan's alert eyes and the tension in every move made an impression that will last. Then in 1980's Dream Merchants, she played Marilyn, a woman who got into the movie business as a pawn for powerful men. She showed how she went from being a dreamer to someone who knew the harsh rules of the game. It was her first role that showed she could play a range of emotions, from seductive and sharp to desperate, and was a small step forward, but more importantly, they helped her build a clear acting identity. Morgan Brittany quietly carved a place in the audience's minds with her precision, cold and beautiful to the point of unease. What audiences see now is Morgan Brittany, a mysterious and captivating woman who never repeats herself. But to get there she had to go through a hard journey, letting go of her past and starting over in a world that wasn't ready for her. Sometimes just a few minutes on screen can make or break a career. In 1980, Morgan Brittany got an odd offer to play Vivian Leigh in the last few minutes of the TV movie, The Scarlett O'Hara War. Leigh was the famous actress who played Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. The part was small, had little dialogue, and most of her co-workers thought it wasn't worth it, but Morgan didn't listen. She refused all advice to turn it down and asked for only one thing: credit my after. The movie came out, Morgan Brittany was introduced as Vivian Leigh, and within a week, her picture was on dozens of TV magazine covers across America. People in the film and TV industries started to wonder, who is this girl? One group that paid attention was the producers of Dallas, the TV show that went global after the Who Shot Jr. cliffhanger in 1980. They were looking for a new face, someone who wasn't too familiar, but who was sharp, mysterious, and had an odd allure for the part of. When Catherine Wentworth, half-sister of Pamela and Cliff Barnes Morgan, was called in to audition, she hesitated. She had just married stuntman Jack Gill and was on her honeymoon, and she knew that if she took on a long-running TV role, major film studios would probably not want to cast her in movies, especially since she was being considered for roles like an officer and a gentleman. At that time, Hollywood still made a clear distinction between film actors and TV actors, but after a long talk with her husband, she decided to go for it. Morgan agreed, and it turned out to be the best decision of her career. The casting session didn't go as planned. Morgan walked in with a cold face because she had been waiting for hours in a crowded room. She read the lines firmly, almost without emotion, and then asked, "Was that good enough? I have to go." A few days later, she got the part, not despite the attitude, because of it. "We just found our Catherine," the producer said. The part was only supposed to be in 6 episodes at first, but the audience loved to hate Catherine. She wasn't just a spoiled other woman, she was a cold, calculated force who could kill for love without hesitation. From 1981 to 1987, Morgan Brittany was an essential part of Dallas, especially when the show was at its peak and aired in over 90 countries. Tens of millions of people watched the episode. The scene where Catherine Wentworth hit Bobby Ewing with a car was one of the most shocking turns in American television history. People were shocked. The network got thousands of letters of complaint, as well as many letters praising the shock value. She once asked Larry Hagman, who played Junior Ewing, how to play a villain that people couldn't get enough of. Larry laughed and said, "The more evil you are, the more they can't look away," and he added, "Let her lose. The more devastating the loss, the more people want to see her win again." It was a brilliant, counterintuitive move. Catherine became a symbol of the beautiful, cold, ruthless villain that people couldn't stop watching. Morgan didn't have to scream or overact, just a look and a cold smile were enough to start a conversation while she played the bad guy on screen. On Dallas, there was a lot of laughter and sometimes jokes being played behind the camera. Morgan remembered serious scenes with Patrick Duffy and Bobby Ewing, who would wink, make faces or whisper jokes. "He knew I had been a child actress and could stay calm, so he always picked me to mess with," Morgan said. "But many times I had to fight back laughter during serious scenes. The set wasn't just fun, it felt like a winning family." Every Wednesday morning when the Nielsen ratings came out, Larry Hagman would walk into the makeup room with a newspaper in hand. Morgan said, "We beat Dynasty again." The whole cast would cheer and applaud. She said that energy wasn't just exciting, it showed that we were a united team doing something special, and everyone was proud of that. And as part of that team, Morgan Brittany officially joined J.R. Ewing, Alexis Carrington, and Abby Cunningham as some of the most memorable bad guys on 1980s TV. She once said, "I don't need the audience to love me as long as they can't take their eyes off of me. Get off of me, already." Morgan Brittany was famous for playing cold, cruel, and calculated characters on screen that made millions of people angry. But in real life, she chose a path that was the exact opposite, private, quiet, and based on strong family values. In 1980, while working on the TV show The Dukes of Hazzard, Morgan met Jack Gill, a veteran stuntman known in the movie business for his skills in action, coordination, and high-speed driving. At the time, Morgan was on the verge of bringing back her career. Jack gave her a sense of stability and respect that she had never felt before in the crazy world of entertainment. They got married in 1981, right before Morgan got her big break as Catherine Wentworth in Dallas. Jack Gill may not have been in front of the camera, but his career behind it was just as impressive. He worked on action scenes for hit movies like Knight Rider, Fast and Furious, Jurassic World, and Pearl Harbor, and he was one of the first people to try to get the Academy to recognize stunt performers. Morgan has said that without Jack's unwavering support, she might have turned down Dallas and quit Hollywood altogether. After getting married and having their 2 kids, Katie and Cody, Morgan slowly faded from public view to focus on being a wife and a mother. She chose to raise her kids in a traditional way, stressing values like honesty, modesty, and privacy. Even though she was famous as a child, she didn't push her kids into the entertainment industry. Instead, she wanted them to have a normal life. Morgan never really left the stage, she just moved from the busy movie sets to her own horse stable in Agora Hills, California. Not many people know that Morgan loves horseback riding. It was more than just a hobby for her, it was a way to connect with nature and keep her mind clear. Her stable wasn't just a place to care for her beloved animals, it was a spiritual haven where there were no directors, there were no spotlights, and there was only wind. In 2006, Morgan had a traumatic event there. A Ferrari Testarossa lost control and crashed into her stable, killing 2 people. Morgan said it was the first time she really understood how fragile life could be, and it made her value her peaceful way of life even more. To TV viewers, Morgan Brittany will always be one of the most memorable bad guys.
In real life, she's a devoted wife to a famous stuntman and a mother who chose to stay at home with her kids. A woman who rides horses to enjoy life in its purest form, Morgan Brittany didn't need a huge career to leave a mark. She only needed one role as Catherine Wentworth to become famous in American television history. Catherine wasn't your typical bad guy. She didn't scream or lose control. She planned, smiled, and killed in silence, and the audience couldn't look away. At the height of her fame on Dallas, the press called Catherine a nightmare in silk. As soon as she walked into a scene, things turned dangerous, and people hated her so much, they had to keep watching. That role created a new type of female antagonist who was both beautiful and dangerously poised, setting the stage for characters like Alexis Colby on Dynasty, Amanda Woodward on Melrose Place, and Claire Underwood on House of Cards. Although it was a quiet role, Morgan Brittany had a big impact, and people still talk about it decades later. Morgan Brittany used to be a symbol of classic beauty on American TV, but in the 2000s, when her fame had already reached its peak, she chose a path that was more controversial than ever. Since 2009, she has been away from film sets and has been straight into the conservative political arena, not as a celebrity giving occasional speeches for attention, but as a real political commentator with articles, analyses, rebuttals, and strong public stances on platforms like WorldNet Daily. Morgan didn't sugarcoat or avoid controversy. In a well-known 2015 article, she asked if the unrest in Baltimore might have been a political stunt set up by the Obama administration to tighten social control. She wrote, "Doesn't it seem strange that every crisis appears just in time to serve some political agenda? To liberals, that question was dangerous. To conservative voters, it was a brave wake-up call from someone who had their Morgan openly criticized wokeness culture, which she thought was eroding American identity. She spoke out against efforts to erase history and in favor of traditional values, faith, free speech, family, and individual rights. Hollywood is no longer a place for making art, it's a propaganda machine," she said in person. From Fox News' Huckabee One America to Heritage Foundation events, Morgan seemed like a strong conservative voice who wasn't trying to bring down the system, but instead, she co-founded Polity Chicks, a platform for conservative women, and wrote 2 important political books with her co-founders. What Women Really Want 2014 and Polity Chicks, a clarion call to political activism 2017. For Morgan, feminism wasn't about stepping over men or traditions, it was about sticking to your values, even when everyone else was telling you to change. Today Morgan doesn't act, but her intelligence and unwavering clarity make her always present. And maybe the most amazing thing about her is, from the spotlight of Dallas to the steps of Capitol Hill, Morgan Brittany is still herself. At 73 years old, she now lives in California with her husband, the famous stuntman Jack Gill, where they've built a peaceful life away from the stage lights. She still wears dark brown hair, light makeup, and simple but elegant clothes. In 2023, she made an impression at a conservative conference with her calm voice and piercing eyes, as if time had only made her more calm and not less bright. She doesn't try to change, she stays true to herself, steady and poised, just like she has for over 50 years. Morgan Brittany stays in touch with the public through social media. She uses the platform X under the official handle @MorganBrittany4 to share her political views, give fans updates on her life, and talk directly with fans. Morgan is a voice that never goes silent, whether on screen or in the digital world. If you ever admired Catherine Wentworth, or just respect a woman who follow Morgan and leave a message, your support could be just what she needs to keep shining in her own unique way. Morgan Brittany isn't a perfect or ideal person, but she is real and full of life. She is living proof of resilience. She is the story of a girl who grew up poor and dared to change her name, to change her fate, and stepped outside the mold to protect her identity. She didn't follow trends or try to be famous, and she never gave in. What do you think? Do you think Morgan Brittany was a star who faded too soon, or a woman who chose to shine in her own way, even when she wasn't in front of the camera? Is there really a cruel rule for people who succeed too early, or have we just grown too used to narrowly defining success? If Morgan's story made you think, give us a like, subscribe, and keep following us as we find more stars in their powerful journeys, where each person is rewriting their story in their own way. Music.